California Governor Gavin Newsom taking a swing at Republicans while discussing his state's problems. Right now, growing concerns that California is reverting back to its old ways after spending millions to clean up rampant homelessness and open-air drug markets for the Apex Summit. The Golden State governor taking to liberal late-night TV and blaming the GOP for amplifying the quality of life issues.
They've been on a doom loop about San Francisco ever since Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. California's outperformed the American economy. It's the tentpole of the American recovery, and its values are a stark contrast. The difference is daylight and darkness between the Republican Party. They have to focus on our failures in order for them to be right. San Francisco is a special place. It is a unique and special place, incredibly resilient and vibrant.
And sounds like someone's looking for a rematch after the big red versus blue state debate. Newsom taking some shots at Florida's Ron DeSantis.
I'm not running for president of the United States. Ron DeSantis apparently still is. I've developed a lot of animus towards him because of his animus towards all of you. This guy's out there scapegoating vulnerable communities. He's attacking minorities, attacking women. For me, it's not anti-woke. What he really means is anti-black. He's out there censoring historic facts. He's rewriting history. He was out there, he eliminated AP African-American studies. He said slavery was somehow some workforce development program, and he doubled down on that. So for me, it's a very serious moment where I just felt it was important to blow back against that narrative.
A lot of finger pointing coming from Newsom as California grapples with major issues of its own. This year, San Francisco recording the highest number of overdoses in the city's history. Michael Schellenberger calling out California for exacerbating the homeless crisis with what he says is bad policy.
And you have to remember, we pay the highest taxes in the entire country in California. We have plenty of resources. In fact, all of the spending is a reason we have these problems. They're subsidizing addiction. They literally pay people to be homeless in San Francisco, and that's the underlying problem to it, and that there's no discipline, there's no law enforcement, and there's no mandating of the treatment that people with mental illness and drug addiction need in order to get into recovery.
Yeah.
Okay, Kellyanne, let's start here. He says that the governor does that California is the temple of the American recovery, but the hundreds of thousands of people who've left in the last couple of years don't seem to agree.
No, 750,000 people have left California in the last 2 years, 352 businesses in the last 4 years. That is not a coincidence, that's causation. Bad policy, high taxes, homelessness, you are tripping over people and their natural discharge as you try to make your way to school or to work or places of worship. And other man-made problems for Gavin Newsom, Shannon. The light rail that he said he was going to abandon, he changed his mind on that, now is pumping billions more into it. It's not going to work. And you mentioned San Francisco. The fact is, Los Angeles also now has fentanyl surpassing meth as the #1 crisis in drug overdose death. Oakland is completely destroyed. So this isn't a fantasy or a concoction of the, quote, right wing. We know that the left is failing in our major cities, including all across Gavin Newsom's California, because we have 2 eyes and 2 ears. It's very simple. One thing I want to say, you can't blame Republicans when the 8 top office holders in the state of California are all elected Democrats. When Democrats control, if you added up the Senate and the Assembly together, 96 seats to about 26 seats, Democrat, Republican. He owns all of this. And all of the great things we love about California, the weather, the ocean, the beaches, the mountain, it has nothing to do with Gavin Newsom and the Democrats. All the things we don't like about California, they have put at our footsteps. Well, I think Gavin Newsom should say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's got the most homeless of them all? And Narcissus, the governor, will find the answer very plain and clear.
Well, I thought it was interesting that he said, with the right coming after him, he says they have to focus on our failures in order for them to be right. But Greg, that seems to admit they do have failures.
First, I think it's really unfair of Kellyanne to wear that outfit. Because there are like 15 jokes I want to say, but I'm not going to, I can't because I don't know her well enough. I'm afraid of Kellyanne Conway.
Do one.
You
Just
should
one.
be.
It will be wonderfully
Wait. Am I going to have to call HR?
Superimpose Gavin's head on this.
I can't wait
I would say Beetlejuice is looking for his jacket. But anyway, no, I'm joking. Look, a couple of things, or a lot of things. First of all, he calls San Francisco resilient. You don't describe a place that's doing really well as resilient. You describe a person who's undergoing serious health problems as they're really resilient. So this place is going through hell, hence he calls it resilient. He brought up race, so that opens the door to his policies, which are anti-black, anti-female, anti-Asian, because all three of them are victims of his policies. At least DeSantis's policies are about lifting all boats, not sinking all of them. However, his point is irrelevant. Politicians point to each other's failures all the time, left and right, but that doesn't negate the failures. We're going to talk about it later in the show. California is now going to be drinking water made out of feces. Okay, that's not a successful state. Newsom's reasoning is that it's like blaming the guy who calls the fire department to put out a fire for the actual fire itself. His reasoning would blame anyone for making a 911 call to report a crime, for simply calling out of concern and saying something. He would prefer that you do not say something, remain silent, lie back, and enjoy it. I was born and raised in California. It's not a political thing for me. It's a tragedy to see what's happening to the state and, in effect, to the country. I would like to help. I'm not there just to point fingers. I saw firsthand experience here in NYC of the crime wave. We pointed this out on the show, I don't know, 3 years ago. We were the canaries in the coal mine here on the 5. We were mocked by people on CNN who are no longer employed. Was that our fault for calling this out? We were called hysterics for pleading with Democrats to do something. If they had listened years ago, they would have been heroes, and we would have been happy for them. And that's another point here. Republicans actually do want to help. They're not just pointing fingers, right? The weird thing about conservatives is they'll pull over and help fix your car or change a flat, even if you got a Biden-Harris sticker on it. It's part of being for small government, relying on your neighbors and individuals. The motto of people on the right is, we're here to help, not the government, even if you hate us. But for some reason, it's never reciprocated because they see it through the lens of politics. Oh, they're only coming after us because it's political. No, we actually do care about the fentanyl poisonings because we've been talking about it for years. We've been talking about the drug addiction, the homelessness, and the crime wave because we care. It's not a political thing for us, even if it is for you.
Well, and listen, if you do or don't like his policies, you talk about smaller government, he's going to have it whether he wants it or not, because now the governor's talking about having to make major cuts because there's this huge deficit. You have people leaving, you have businesses leaving, so you're going to have a tax base that's different. But Will, he says, Republicans are making their failures sort of these Democrats that he's an avatar for what's wrong in the world. It reminds me of the Chicago mayor who said something recently, too. Like, it's the right wing that's making us look bad.
First, I want to say, Greg, I think you can sleep soundly and safely. I think that the amount of incoming that has come the way of Kellyanne Conway, a little bit of ribbing over her jacket probably didn't even dent the surface, much less leave a scratch.
She has a thick skin.
If I were to find out she were sensitive about her jacket, I would re-question my total understanding of reality in Kellyanne Conway.
Thank you for supporting the Philadelphia Eagles tonight.
That is not what's happening, and now I am sensitive as a Cowboy fan, America's team.
Cowgirl.
What I would say about Gavin Newsom is it is incredible that he has become the face of the Democrat Party because he is a self-evident failure. Everything about that state is on its face a failed state. And I could go through, and I don't need to, because you really only need the one condemnation, the one observation that Kellyanne and you, Shannon, have pointed out is that people are fleeing the state. In Thomas Jefferson's little laboratories of democracy, that's the biggest indictment that you can receive. I'm out. All he has left, the only thing he has to recommend him, I guess, is that he's a face jock. And secondarily, that he's once again pulled out the knife of racism, homophobia, vulnerable communities. He says Ron DeSantis isn't anti-woke, he's anti-black. Last time I was on the 5 was right after the DeSantis-Newsom debate. And I said we should be worried about Newsom because he is a very effective liar. But if he wants to lie about the nature of America and Ron DeSantis' moral soul, I think he's pulled out a knife that's dull. I think America is done with everyone who disagrees with you is a racist. That knife has no edge, and he's going to have to come up with some better lies if he's going to be the face of Democrats.
Well, Jessica, a lot of people think he is going to be the face of Democrats, like as in maybe on the ticket for you guys next year.
You mean in 2028 next year?
No, I mean in 2024. He says he's not running, but A lot of folks think it looks an awful lot like a shadow campaign.
I think that there was a lot more merit to that argument like 6 months ago. Remember when he went to the White House on a day when Joe Biden was
Right.
out, et cetera. And now he really has become one of the strongest Biden-Harris surrogates out there. And I think the fact that he took on that debate with Ron DeSantis and stood up there and said, you should be talking to Donald Trump, right? You're standing here with me, someone who's not on the ticket, and he'll be on in 2028. I'm sure that he'll get into the primary then. But I don't think that he has an aspiration to do it right now. Frankly, I think that having just come out of COVID and the scenes that we see, that California is not going to be ready. It's not the best laboratory to go out and run a presidential campaign on at this particular moment. It doesn't mean that there haven't been strides in the right direction. We see pictures of homeless people all the time. The homeless rates are down in California, though. 10% of the jobs that were gained just last month in the U.S. came from California. And he's making a very valid point. Republicans, and Greg, you might be right that the average Republican is desperate to change my tire. And I would welcome it if I get a flat because I don't know what to do under those circumstances. But Ron DeSantis stood up there and held a big poop map, right? And didn't want to talk about the fact that Jacksonville has a 67% higher murder rate than San Francisco, right? He doesn't want to talk about the homelessness problem in Tampa. You talk about having to step over people. You got to do that in Tampa, too. I have seen no politician of either party that stands up there and wants to olive branch with the other side and say, you know what, you're doing this right, especially in a debate or when you have a friendly interview. You're going to take every opportunity to pound the other guy. And they're clearly targeting DeSantis because if it's not Trump, he's quite formidable. I know Nikki Haley is polling ahead of him in the head-to-head with Biden, but Ron DeSantis is...
Pointing out that Florida is not utopia and that it might have a few problems does not in any way forgive the apparently insurmountable and gigantic problems of the entire state of California, from crime and homelessness to, yes, the economy, to their COVID policies. The fact that Florida isn't perfect doesn't forgive California.
But that's your political bias again, that you framed it that way.
Okay,
I said a 67% higher murder. You know how many murders that is? That's not like 4 extra murders. It's a lot of murders.
But if you're looking at the overall health of California, too, in addition to that, you have to, tens of billions of dollars in deficit.
And the budget is a disaster. I led with...
But the governor's in charge, right?
All the Democrats are in charge of everything.
Okay, all right. Jessica is going to come back in the next episode. Coming strong.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.